Thank you very much, Gina, for getting us some time to discuss an interesting topic, which is the role of the technical-centric universities in our society. And I think this is fantastic because we have in the audience so many young people. I guess many of you are just postgraduates or are still working on it. So, Jos, we are missing you, but the audience is fantastic and the room is packed. So we are off for a good discussion on the societal role of large technology-centric universities. I ought to say to you that I am neither a technologist nor a scientist. I am more of a diplomat and a communicator and a crisis manager from the political point of view. That's why the answers are from the people that know about that. So it's a pleasure to invite our rector to tell us what is the role of these technology-centric universities in a current situation where the issues are so complex and the solutions will not only come from technology. So give us an example of what the university brings us as a solution to the current challenges.
Okay, well, thank you, Cristina. Thank you also, the organizers, for inviting us to this panel. Well, I would prefer letting the examples to my colleague, Soraya. I would like to address the main problem. I would say that, well, we are facing now clearly an ecological crisis. I think we are more or less aware of that, and also we realize that we are in a world who has limited resources, and then we need to find solutions which allow both continue living in this planet, because we have to have very clear that we may die, the planet will continue, but the problem is for us to continue living here. But also there is something which is very, very important, which is that the world is very heterogeneous. I mean, when we look at these problems, to these problems from the Western point of view, we are in some sense, well, it's difficult to understand that, which is maybe important for us, are very sophisticated needs. One, there are many countries in the world which still have to solve other problems. For example, if we think we want to develop new materials, let's say quantum materials, that's nice, we should do it. But we have to have in mind that, for example, housing is a real problem around the world, and housing requires a lot of materials. We say traditional materials, that's not important. Traditionals or new, they are needed. So, for example, when we think in research, it's very important to make research in quantum materials, to say something, but it's also important to make research in not so smart materials, but materials that may allow the needs, to satisfy the needs of housing in the world with a low energy consumption and in a sustainable approach. So this is, I think, something that we have to have in mind and which is important for universities. It's not only important to be in the edge of the technology, that we must be, but also we have to look at what are the actually large problems in the world and contribute to solve these problems, always having in mind that the only solution is a sustainable solution.
Good. Soraya, give us some examples. The rector basically told you to do so. Although you already hinted, housing needs solutions, and they will come from research, technology, and innovation.
Thanks, Cristina. So yes, to give some more examples besides the one that the rector provided, I would mention especially, for example, the construction, the production of autonomous cars, for example, or how new devices are adapted for the elderly, for our elders, our new seniors. I like to use this word because they are going to be in a digital world in some years now. So when in all the designing process of all these new devices, we need to take into account aspects such ethics, for example, and also this new energy transition. Our economies has been based along years in fuels, and now how we face this energy transition with new materials and new minerals that are going also to be scarce. So we need to take all this into account.
Good example, Soraya. Josh, from your view, from the US, such a technology-driven society, what do you see is the role of the large technology-centric universities?
Well, thank you, Cristina. And I'm so sorry I can't be there. I'm jealous. I've always wanted to be in Barcelona, so I'm jealous of you all. So I think that from the US perspective, and really a global perspective, the research-active universities are kind of in an inflection point. And part of that is because the problems that we're trying to address from a societal point of view have gotten more complicated, more multidimensional. And so we at the University of Mississippi have been putting a lot of focus on trying to build interdisciplinary teams. So we have not only the physicists and the chemists, but also the public policy experts and the sociologists, that can come into a team to address these complex problems. And in addition to that, we still have a responsibility to build on that fundamental base knowledge that we have been so good at for so long. However, we have an additional responsibility, I would say, to do what we can to try and translate that technology, that fundamental research and development into solutions that can actually improve society. And so we've been putting a lot of focus on that. You were asking for examples. I think a good example for us is our Center for Research, for Graphene Research and Innovation. And we built that center around some fundamental base knowledge on graphene and low dimensional materials, but with a real focus to partner with industry, to partner with government agencies who have particular solutions that they require, and make sure that we are doing the work to translate that fundamental work into the solutions that they need.
Okay, good examples. Let me tell the audience that I was working at the United Nations as Under Secretary General when the Sustainable Development Goals were approved. That's why I'm, always wearing the sign, because it's such an important milestone in the development process. And we looked at that agenda as a mid to long-term agenda, very transformational. And that's why I'm saying this for my next question, which is, how do you, from the perspective of the universities, do you handle the short-term needs and the long-term musts, in particularly in the field of sustainability? You all have mentioned it. And I know that there are 4 SDGs that are particularly targeted these days of discussion. SDG 3, health and well-being, SDG 9, industry and innovation, SDG 11, cities. We are just next to the Smart Cities Fair, and climate action. Rector.
Well, it's clear that the SDGs have a real nice feature, which is that they allowed us to focus the research.
Yeah.
I mean, when you say, okay, the United Nations have agreed in these 17 SDGs, this is also a guide for most universities. I mean, for sure. Well, as Josh said, we need interdisciplinary teams addressing the different subjects, but now they have a clear view of what they have to, where to focus their efforts. And this is, for me, this is one of the most important features and advantages of having these SDGs. Now, I mean, you can find the common challenges of the different universities, helping also the collaboration, the international collaboration of the universities. And this, for me, is a real good point of having these SDGs.
But can I say something, Soraya, along the same question? We know that there are many contradictions that can happen in the process of implementing the SDGs. So you know the goal, you know the climate action, which is a planet which is not an ailing one. But we know in the process there are many contradictions and people suffer. So how do you combine the short-term needs and the long-term obligations?
Well, it's a difficult question, and we don't have the answer alone from the academia. And from our university, we strongly believe in collaborations with not only other academic institutions, but also with the private sector and the public sector. So in that sense, I would like also to stress the importance of the voice from the researchers and the scientific community in establishing these policies and directives, for example, in line with the biodiversity strategy from the European Commission and the global one as well by the United Nations, from the different scientific chapters that can contribute to establish these policies to work all together.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Josh, how do we manage short-term, long-term?
Yeah, actually, Soraya, I think hit it on the nose. I think academics and academia plays a really critical role, especially in the long-term thinking. I mean, that's part of what we do. That's part of our DNA, is that we are given the space to really think about the big problems that reach far into the future. But as you say, there are transitional issues that we need to address right now. And I think that is where our partnerships, our increasing partnerships with both the private sector, with industry, and also with government, that are both areas are focused on the more short-term solutions and medium-term solutions. So I think it's that partnership that will help us bridge from where we are now to where we need to be in the future.
Okay, well, that's a good point, but may not be enough, Josh, because look at what happens. Now we are in an energy crisis in Europe, and we are somehow going back to fossil fuels, right? And we thought we were going to be progressively getting rich. So this is one of these hurdles that constantly appear in long or not so long transitional processes. You have some comment on that?
I do. I think inevitably we're going to always have sort of bumpy roads along this path, right? I mean, we can't always predict what the circumstances will throw at us. And so it's not going to be sort of a monotonic climb. It's going to be ups and downs and peaks and valleys along the way. I think what we really need to focus on is to make sure that that on average over time we are progressing in the right direction. I think we are, but inevitably you're right. We're going to be hitting peaks and valleys.
Thanks. Let's turn to something which I hope the audience will be interested on, which is how do we handle the next generations, the education of the next generations, which is the key role of universities. What do you think, Rector, how to attract and educate the young generations in such a way that they contribute to reinforcing the societal purpose? How do we get, those engineers that are also social scientists, that know about anthropology, that have the complex information for complex solutions? Are we doing the right things vis-a-vis the younger generations?
Yeah, well, I think that attracting people to the universities is one of the important things for sure, not for any of the subjects. And in particular, this is said that now universities are facing a digital transition. And I don't think we should focus on the digital aspect of the transition, but also in changing the whole educational model of universities. I mean, students nowadays they are sons of the 21st century. They have used to have many channels, and the universities must understand that we must access the students through the channels they expect to be accessed, and then we have to offer them answers through the channels they have, and also use them in our teaching. That's something which is important, but not thinking that the solution will come from digital responses, using digital responses where they are useful. And the second question is that we need to face problems that maybe are not so clear. For example, everyone is, I think, aware about the gender inequality that we have, for example, in technical studies, and there is an important effort to try to approach women to technology because we think that we need their approach. But I think that, well, in fact, our data shows that there is not only gender inequality, there is also social inequality, because technology is much more attractive for the people, let's say, in a good social condition, and then we realize that in our case, we have data that we have much more students coming from wealthy families than from not so wealthy families, and this is very clear that talent grows everywhere. Yeah. So we need to manage to reach all the levels of the society, because the technology needs all the talent, not only the talent from males from good families.
And we're doing some good things in order to really bring together the best talent from wherever, and developing in these young generations this critical mindset and societal responsibilities.
Yes, as the question was also how to attract the students, yeah. Well, the first thing is to make ourselves attractive for them. Mm-hmm. And how to do this? I think one of the key issues is, so we offer the possibility through education for them to become change players in the future society. To give some concrete examples that what we are doing at UPC in that respect is that this year, for example, we started a curricular course that mix students of philosophy from the University of Barcelona with some of our students in data science. The experience is being wonderful because we create mixed teams from future philosophers and future engineers. They organize themselves and propose a particular a subject of actuality they want to solve, and they propose this challenge to the rest of the class. And this is developed along the semester. And this is very, very interesting, so we can offer our future engineers of other perspective. Interdisciplinarity is key, and also for philosophers as well, or lawyers, for example, or anthropologists. Technology is everywhere, and they are not going to be able to perform a good, let's say, profession without having some knowledge, basic knowledge at least from technology side. So it's important.
I find this, Soraya and Rector and Roche, so important because the complexities of the current challenges are so deep that never only one direction will drive us to solutions. But I want to address the question from another angle, or to Jos. We just had the presentation of an extraordinary scientist, Nuria Oliver, challenging Metaverse. I don't know if you were able to follow it, but it was quite interesting. In fact, I said it was amazing. In 5 minutes, she gave 5 reasons why we should have our doubts about Metaverse. That is basically developing a very critical mindset in, the researchers, among the researchers and the technologies. Do you think that the universities have the right tools to develop this critical mindset in our younger generations?
Let's see. So that is a good question, and it's a big question. Yes, I think we have the right tools. One thing that and sort of building on some of the comments, the good comments from just a few minutes ago, I think that the universities and academia in general needs to do a better job on sort of innovative thinking about the academic programs that we're offering. we have a very traditional mindset with certain majors and certain disciplines and certain degrees. And that's served us very well. And I would never advocate that we divert, greatly from that. However, that being said, and this will loop back a little bit to what you were just asking, I think we need to be more creative to develop programs which stitch some of our traditional tools and programs together in order to prepare the students to do two things. One is to excite the students about emerging career paths, and then prepare them well so that when they go into those career paths, they are ready to hit the ground running in a productive way. And Soraya, I thought that was very interesting. You brought up the philosophy and the data science connection. We just had a wonderful workshop that was put on both by our Institute for Data Science and our Center for Applied Ethics on bias in artificial intelligence. And that's just a great example of bringing in the philosophers and the ethicists and the data scientists, and also even in that we're the legal and policy folks, right? Because this is a very real issue. So to get back to the question, I think we have the right tools. I think we need to develop more of them.
Okay. Yes, please.
If you allow me, there's something which is very important. I think universities are very, very nice places, are the proper places for the intellectual debate, both between the students and academics. And I think there is something that we are not aware enough, that this internal debate, if it becomes internal, is sterile. I mean, we need to, we have the need of translating these debates, which are inside of the academia, through the media, to the society. And I think, I find that universities are not fulfilling this. I mean, in some sense, I realize that academics are very worried in their own problem, because they are doing research in something, and due to the competitivity we have in universities, sometimes they don't find time to simply translate these results or this debate to the society through the media. And this is something that universities should improve.
Well, this brings me to another point, which is if universities do not break these ivory towers, or only link with other similar centers, the technological with the technological and not with others, frankly, we will not be developing the type of education that the next generations need. So how to do that? What type of alliances are needed in order to be more transversal?
Well,
I would say I strongly believe in concrete projects and to build common path when there is a common purpose. And for example, through research projects, just to give an example, there are very interesting ones, and we will maybe revise this by the end of the session. Citizen science is an excellent opportunity to do so. And to involve also our community of students, not only from our technical universities, but others. So we are offering a concrete problem, and we focus on a common purpose altogether, from the different disciplines and also from the different, let's say, sectors, academia and industry, for example, or citizenship, sorry. So I think this is a good example and way to establish alliance through common purposes. And sometimes also it's important to highlight, for example, in alliances with big tech companies, for example. We are expecting some different KPIs, let's say, from the companies and private sector side, and from the academia, for example. So we need to devote much more efforts to converge and to focus on the common purpose, and then to get rid of the difficulties and focus on the delivery thing.
It seems just that the US university environment is a little bit more transversal, in particularly in relation with the private sector, right? But maybe you have some examples to to tell us how this is being done, or maybe it's not that positive as we think it is, right? Tell us.
So, yes, I think that there are certainly at the University of Mississippi, and I think if you look more broadly in the U.S. higher education community, you're seeing more engagement with the private sector, and both some of the larger, more traditional technology firms, but also with the smaller startup firms. And in some ways, those relationships are they're very exciting because those firms are small, they're growing, they're innovative, and that sort of meshes well a little bit better with some of our culture here on the research campuses. But I'm going to loop this back, Cristina, to one of your earlier questions about how do you attract talent and build and foster talent. As the rector mentioned, we need all the brains we can get. These problems are hard. And so whether you come from a wealthy family or a family of less means, we need your brain. And so one of the things that we found very exciting and engaging for students is to get involved early in research projects with some of these companies. So it's a combination of a faculty researcher and a company and some students involved in that. And they really engage with that process, and it ignites a fire in them that's really fun to see.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Huh? I would like to turn again to the big issues, huge societal problems. And I also go back to the moment of the decision of the Sustainable Development Agenda. And I remember clearly in the big debates at the United Nations, we were always saying, well, there are two things that this development plan will succeed, because science and because international unanimity. You will recall that the SDGs were adopted by a unanimously approach from private sector, politicians, and civil society. Hence, we are a few years after, and things are not looking that good. So what is the role of the university to really re-engage? There is one good example, if I might add, is the IPCC. Mm-hmm. The scientific evidence of IPCC is now the mantra. Nobody questions. But we are not yet tracking the development that we wanted. What can universities do to get us again in front of the solutions to the huge problems?
Well, there are many aspects in which universities may be at least an example. For example, I would like to comment the European strategy for universities, which has been set up precisely this year, in which, for example, they propose the universities to become campus labs or green cities, just to show to the society how to make this transition. For sure, for example, thinking essentially in sustainability and energy and the energy transition. For sure, this will require resources. It's clear that they will require them. But on the contrary, we have the advantage that the university communities are eager to collaborate with this. So this is one of the ways in which, at the own university levels, I think we can contribute to this advance, becoming, in some sense, examples to the society, examples that you can go, you can see, you can touch. Okay. Then it's also important that we increase the strength of the international collaboration between universities, and I would say especially the collaboration between universities in the, let's say, first world in the developed countries, because many important things for the let's say life of the planet will happen not in Europe, it will happen in Africa, it will happen in other places, and then there is the need to help the knowledge we have and to help the development of the universities in these countries. So for me, these are two possibilities of helping to reach this development.
Very good. Soraya? Something to add?
I'm fully represented.
Good. Jos, over to you. How do we get the universities pushing forward the huge agendas that we have in front of us?
You know, to build on the rector's comments, which I thought were excellent, you know, the universities, especially large universities, are essentially small cities. Mm-hmm. You know, there is power infrastructure, there's transportation, there is water, there you know, food service. It's the whole gamut of a city within a campus, for which those are wonderful laboratories for some of these sustainability concepts, to try them out. And you do see a fair number of universities which make these initiatives. So they convert a whole building to solar or powered by alternative energies, whether solar or wind, things like that. Electric vehicle, the electrification of transportation on campuses, you're seeing more of that. We're talking about doing some of that, more of that, I should say, at the University of Mississippi. So in some ways, they're good laboratories for how you might debug some of these solutions and then roll them out on a broader scale. So that's, of course, that's just an infrastructure, perspective. I mean, of course, hopefully we also bring some good thought to the table as well.
Good. We are winding down our time, but I have one question, which is more of a reflection. Okay, we have universities, like cities, alliances, but how do we manage what it seems is key, critical, which is open science, citizen science, which is another perspective. Does this bother the universities, all this talk about open science and citizen science?
Well, open science in Europe is becoming just a reality, because science which is funded with public funding, we are also forced to make our development public. It is clear that if we want to do something which is in some terms contradictory, because on one side we want to develop open science, on the other side we want to help companies to develop interesting products, and well, they require some secrecy on their. Then the balance between open science and intellectual property protection is one of the most important issues that universities need to know how to manage. And as for citizen science, I think that it's a tool that we still don't know what is the potential and how to use it, because it's wonderful. I mean, if you imagine all the citizens of a city just using their mobile phone to gather scientific data, the possibilities they offer are wonderful. But scientists, this is a new tool for us, and probably we are still in some time to learn how to use it.
Yeah. So how a scientist responds to citizen science?
Okay, if may I give an example to showcase, and if anybody wants to copy, we will feel proud of it. At UPC, we have created a very interesting portal, which is called the UPC Citizen Science Portal, and it gathers all different projects around citizen science in which the university is involved. So it's open to the public, and you can collaborate directly, accessing to each of them with the contact person and so on, and also by offering your data. For example, to give you some examples, is you can notify when you see snow on the road, and this is to contribute to our very large research project, which is called Anywhere, and it's about early warning systems, for example. So we offer the citizens the possibility to collaborate through this, but also to other projects of co-design, for example, in some, let's say, less favorable economical neighborhoods in Barcelona in the architectural perspective. So you can collaborate as citizens to this co-designing process with architects from UPC and also people that are living in this particular neighborhood, for example. And I think this is a good example to be showcased, because there are many different kinds of projects, not only research ones in there. And through the portal, we are also providing tools for the citizens to better engage and communicate. So I will let the link afterwards for the ones that are interested.
Just, so you do not think that citizen science is less of a science?
No, I think it supplements. It's the citizen science, I think, has certain areas which can bring great value. Just as a quick example from our campus, we have a team in the Department of Biology who's developed an app where folks that live along our Gulf Coast can track shark sightings, dolphin sightings, turtle sightings, things like that. And so they're in a sense using the population and the citizenry as probes and sensors, and that really helps build a robust data set that our scientists would not have without that. So in that sense, I think it supplements and improves the science. And I know we're getting short on time, but I wanted to take a little bit of a different twist on this conversation, which is something we're doing more of and exploring more, which is what we call community engaged research. Mm-hmm. And this is the sort of philosophy that, when our scholars are looking to address a particular problem that might be hitting a community, that we're not using the community as a guinea pig for our studies, but we're engaging with those leadership and the community members to understand not only what the real problems are and issues, but also what are the practical solutions? What are solutions that we can propose that can actually be implemented in that community? And so they're involved from the very start. When we start the research questions and the proposals, the community members are part of the proposal, not coming at the end.
Okay, well, that was a good example, good idea. We are running out of time. Zina is already saying that let's wrap up, and we'll wrap up with me asking you all an applause for Soraya Hidalgo, for Daniel Crespo, and Joe Gladden. Thank you very much. I think it's been quite a dense and intense 40 minutes, and I hope useful to all of us, and a good contribution to this amazing puzzle X.
Thank you very much, Cristina. Thanks to